And now little about degrees of freedom analysis in Inventor 2020. So here is the assembly, and as before it has three user-defined positional representations, one for flexibility that we see is rotating, one parallel that is not rotating, is aligned parallel, and one cross which is 90 degrees. So you can examine constraints in this assembly to save your time. In master, this assembly is not fully constrained, as those bolts are not constrained in the way they are fully defined, as it is possible to force Inventor to rotate this bolt the other way around. So for me this is degree of freedom, as this bolt can have more than one position, so it can move. It is not continuous movement, but it can move. I have elaborated a lot about this, but before, just for me, these two bolts have degrees of freedom still, rotation about their axis. But even though we can argue about those bolts, let's see what else we can see about this assembly. So if we go to view and we select degrees of freedom, we have no indication whatsoever about any degrees of freedom in the assembly. Also, we can just use this table to see the degrees of freedom. So clearly this assembly seems as having no degrees of freedom, but as I showed you, these bolts are capable of flipping. So Inventor in some cases may find a solution where this bolt is the other way around. Now let's go to cross. This is just the same as master, only one angle is overridden to 90 degrees, so it should also have 0 degrees of freedom. And as before, it indicates 0, and also we have degrees of freedom option in view set to on. So we should see if there are any. There are none. So let's go to parallel. Parallel, the same as before, because only this angle is overridden, so also 0. Now let's go to flexible. In flexible, this angle is suppressed, so these elements can rotate. And if we go to view and click it, we see that this element has indication as moving with some other element. This element is moving with some other element. This is moving with some other element, and we have some rotation degree of freedom here. So quite nice. We would expect that. We have rotation 1 for some element. I'm not sure which one is it. It's the screw is this one. So, but we do not have any indication of degrees of freedom for other elements that move in this assembly, and at least 1, 2, 3, 4 elements in this assembly have degrees of freedom. As we can clearly see, they are moving. So this table only indicates single degree of freedom for one element only, which is not correct. And furthermore, this is switching off again, we can see that when we show degrees of freedom and indication in view, we have indication that something is moving with something else. But this table does not follow this approach. But let's see now what happens when I switch to master. I activate that, Then I switch to flexible, and now I activate it again, and now the rotational degree of freedom is not even indicated. And also all of those elements, this one only this element has indication that it is moving with something else, but this one, they do not have any degrees of freedom indicated in the view, and I didn't change anything in the assembly since then. Also, the assembly indicates single rotational degree of freedom for the bolt. This is actually this one. So no, which one is it? Oh, so for the nut. Okay, so clearly this doesn't go together with that, and this does not go together with this. So clearly total mismatch in degrees of freedom analysis still in Inventor 2020.